it's time to talk about all of the books that I have read recently. There are all kinds of genres, so I'm pretty sure you'll get at least one book recommendations. There are all kinds of star ratings, so it's gonna be a very spicy video. I'm not gonna be talking about the books in the sequence in which I have read them because I just did not keep it like that. I don't exactly remember. I've not kept up with my reading journal. But at the end of the day, I am here to give you fresh recommendations and I am so excited. Let's begin the video. Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing very nice. I'm sending a lot of hugs and positivity to all of you. Hi, if you're new, welcome to the channel. I really hope you enjoy the content, and if you do, please do consider subscribing. Welcome to the book club. First up, let's talk about the two non-fiction books that I have read. First up, we have The Tiger Bells by Amy Ali Card, which is the story of an all-black women's track team that have won over the Olympics in, I think, the 1960 in Rome. I first got this book in my email and I was very excited to read it, so I started reading it, and then the author was kind enough to actually send it to me. When I started reading from the physical copy, and I have read the entire journey of the Tiger Bells from the beginning till the end, I felt so inspired. I am always a sucker for books that help lift women up, that empower women. I love Carrie Soto and is back. Those are fiction books, and as much as I love them, this is a non-fiction book, which means it's a real story of real people going through all of these real issues and adversities and problems, and these problems are quite severe, and then you see how they reacted to things in those situations. There is an amalgamation of pictures, there are quotations, interviews, all of that making the book become really alive in your mind. Seeing the journey of all these women, their manager, everybody involved from the start to the end is one of the best things I have ever experienced without actually being present in these times. They were able to conquer their own battles. They were able to pave the way for the next generation. They were able to achieve the things that they wanted to achieve and that they have dreamt of, and I cannot think of anything better or any better way to spend living your life. Being able to help yourself, help others, and grow in the process. If you like Carrie Soto is back, but you want to read the story of real people, then this is your book. Even though it is non-fiction, I think even fiction lovers can read this book because it is a story and it's super interesting and engaging, and it's very easy to read. So even if you're a beginner, you can pick this book up. Even if you're a teenager, please pick this book up. It's the best thing you'll ever read. Next non-fiction is Ever Changing Self by Ujjwal Kant Mishra, which is an amalgamation, a collection of a lot of articles from the blog that Anchal Rani runs. The author himself, before and during the COVID lockdown times, had been going through a lot of trouble. Mental health struggles, other struggles in life, just the struggles of being a human being, and he sought for help on the outside. He got help from the inside, and he went on a self-development journey, which is one of the most beautiful journeys you can go on as a human being. Whatever he learned from that journey, whatever he has applied in his own life, whatever results he got from that, instead of keeping it to himself, instead of gatekeeping it, he decided to actually share it with the world, and so he started with the blog. You can check out the blog if you want to, but even if you don't, some of the best articles from that blog are collected in this book. It's inspiring and it's motivational, and if you like the book 101 Ways to Change the Way You Think by Brianna Weiss, I think you like this book a lot because you do not have to read the entire book in one day. I know I did not, because it's better to wake up every day, or when you go to bed every day, whatever time you want actually, to read one article and absorb it completely and see the experience of the author reflected in it. The only thing that bothered me a little bit with this book was the editing of the book itself, the styling of the book. The text is a little short, the ending and starting is not very clear, and when I am reading personally, I love it when a book is very visually and capturing too. Apart from that, I loved the book. I highly recommend it. Even if you're a beginner, you can go ahead with it, and even if you're a teenager, go ahead. It is meant for adults, but if you're a teenager and you're curious, go ahead. Moving on to fiction, first up, let's talk about a thriller that I have read from one of my most favorite authors, and that is Thompson Robert. The book is The Celebrity CEO. This is the story of a man who is at the top of his world. He has everything that you can imagine. He has fame, he has money, he has success, everybody listens to him, he is respected, he is feared, except that one day something happens, it changes the entire course of his life, and he is not the king anymore. He is not at the top. He has just fallen down so hard that he wakes up in a hospital in Goa. He is in police custody and he doesn't even know why. Going from a place where you are so sure of yourself, where you are so confident about yourself, to a place where you have no idea where you are, even like physically in the moment, is crazy. I say it is a thriller, but the thing with Thompson Robert is that his characters always have a character arc, and I love character arcs no matter what the genre is. So that was a brownie point for me. It kept me hooked. It is super short, it is super easy to read. I wouldn't highly recommend it to teenagers because there are themes in this book that are not teenage friendly, or there is language in the book that is not teenage friendly. There was not one point where I got bored. It is airtight. It is moving from scene to scene. The character arc is beautiful. It is somehow inspiring, and going on this journey with this guy was like the best 3 to 4 hours that I have spent. It was so much fun. So if you want a book by an Indian author, you want a thriller that also has character arcs, and you want to have a good thrilling Bollywood masala mazedar time, then I think you'll find this book perfect. After the thriller, let's move on to one of the most heartwarming books I have ever read. It is beautiful. There are multiple characters, they all come together, and it warms your heart in every single page. The book is The People on Platform 5 by Claire Pooley. I actually started reading this book last year. I read around 100 pages, and at that time I had to DNF it because I knew that I'm not in a place to consume it the way I wanted to consume it. Now when I picked it up again, I was definitely in a place. I was in the perfect mood to read this book, and it is so heartwarming. If you're going through a rough time, if you're sad, if you feel like everybody lets you down, if you feel like there's not much to life, if you feel really low and you want a hit of serotonin, if you want a hit of happiness and just pure joy, then this is your book. Do not miss out on it. It is a story of all of the people on platform 5 that take the same train to go to different destinations, and these people never talk to each other. Nobody does. But one day a man is about to die, and that disturbs the silence and the steeliness of the train of all of the people. Everybody is just, oh my god, what is that? And that makes them talk to each other a little bit, which changes the course of all of their lives. There are multiple POVs in the book, so you get into the head of every character. Every character is going through some sort of a problem which may be relatable to you. There are some dark and like serious problems going on, but the book is written in a very light-hearted, heartwarming style, so it does not get to you, which is why I say you can read it even if you're in a dark place right now. And for people like me who have sort of trust issues, I cannot trust people easily to actually help me. I don't like it when I go to a crowded place because I don't want to interact with people. This book shows the importance of community. It shows the importance of friendship, of being vulnerable, and how you can make new friends even if you're an adult. Iona, who is sort of the center of the book, is a very old lady, and I love Iona. I just really hope that when I am old, I am like Iona. For my daughter Eliza, may you always be more Iona. That is the most beautiful dedication that you only come to know what it means once you have read the book. It's the best book ever. I gave it 4.5 stars. I would want it to be a little more intense so that it gut punched me even more, and then it would be a 5-star. From all of that light, let's move on to some darkness, because the next book that I'm recommending is literally the darkest fantasy book that I have ever read. It is not meant for teenagers. Even adults, you need to have a heart of steel to be able to read this book, and if you're in for it, you are in for a treat. The book that I'm talking about is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, which is the first book in a trilogy. I was so devastated after reading the first book that I did read the second book for like 100 or 200 pages. That book I think is 600 pages. I just couldn't move on because the main character in this book, Rin, has just tried to escape a life of marriage when she's a child. So she goes to this school. It's a military school. She's trying to move on, but things take a turn, and the way they take a turn is insane. R.F. Kuang is God. Her writing style is God. It is not meant for the faint-hearted. I think R.F. Kuang has this quality of writing things that just cut through you. You don't have to try to make sense of it. It goes straight to your heart, not in a meaningful, heartwarming way. It's just so factual, even if it is a feeling. I'm trying to think of the right word. It's so hard hitting. It's inspired by Chinese history, Chinese mythology. So if you're into historical fiction, historical fantasy, then you will love this book. I must say the language is easy, so even if you're a beginner in the fantasy world, you can pick this book up. I gave this book 5 stars. It was perfection. Moving on to something lighter, I read a series that reminded me of The Good Girl's Guide to Murder, not because the stories are similar at all, but I have not been invested in a series like this where I sacrificed my sleep and my food and whatnot just so I could finish the series, so I could know what the ending is, and I wanted to see how the characters ended up because I loved the characters too. The series I'm talking about is the Inheritance Games series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I have a reading vlog on this, so you can go and check that out. It is non-spoiler, and the spoiler vlog is also coming very soon because it's already shot. I just have to edit it. A very rich man who is a billionaire dies, and instead of leaving all of his legacy, all of the inheritance to his family, he leaves it to this stranger girl, and her name is Avery. Avery is like, wait, what is going on? And it's YA, so you can read it as a teenager also. And Avery is young. She's 17. Why did the old man choose Avery? Will she even get the inheritance? There is the entire Hawthorne family that was supposed to get the inheritance. What do they do? There's a mini plot of romance going on, and as you move ahead, there are a few more characters that get added to the book. So don't you worry, there is no lack of plot. It is all filled with story, not one page, not one chapter without some sort of twist, and I have never been twisted so much. It's not that dark. There are only some places where it gets a little creepy, a little dark. It starts with all games and fun to see, oh, what's going to happen, and it is a little bit similar to Knives Out, but as you move ahead, it goes far away from Knives Out. It becomes a thing of its own. It becomes emotional. The mini plot of romance is beautiful, and the games are genius. I cannot believe somebody has actually written all of these games. I want to criticize this book some places. Okay, the final gambit was not a 5-star for me, and I want to criticize it, but sometimes I just zoom out and I think about it, and I'm like, a human being wrote this. A human being wrote all of these games. Somehow all of those games tied up to each other. There were so many characters. There was a mystery to be solved. There's inheritance, there's fun, what not, and it gets serious and it gets dark. How did one person do all of this? And that is where I'm like, I can't criticize this series whatsoever. It is so worth the hype. It is definitely worth a read at least once in your lifetime. I gave the first book 4.5 stars because while the mystery and the twist and turn, it was all similar throughout the entire book, the emotional quotient in this book only increased towards the end, and I love it when my books have the emotional quotient high from the very first page. I gave the second book 5 stars because it was perfection. There was a balance of games, mystery, darkness, emotional depth, and the romance was amazing. And then I gave Final Gambit 3.75 stars because too many games, bro. Like, my head at a certain point was not able to follow what is going on because I just don't have that brain. So if you are into puzzles and mazes and you like to solve a lot of things, I think you'll enjoy the third book also a lot. However, I loved the ending to the entire series. I loved what happened with all of the characters. The character arcs, amazing, very satisfying. So overall, I've given the series a 5 stars and I love it. There's one more book in the series that is out already that I have not read yet, which I'm hoping is the story of the other 2 brothers who have not been talked about a lot in this series. I'm not very eager to read it because it is a spin-off series and more parts of it are supposed to come out, and I just don't like to read a book that ends at a cliffhanger and I don't have the next book. I swear to God, if that happened with this, like, I read the first book and I did not already have the second book, I would just die. I am not even exaggerating. Moving on to some magical romance. This is one of the best romances I have read, especially this year. I think I just love it when books do this, where sometimes I'm just going about my day and I remember what these characters did for each other or what happened with them, and this book has literal magic in it. The book I'm talking about is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Ashley Poston is coming out with a new book this year and I can't wait to read it. I literally gave her last book, The Dead Romantics, 4.5 stars or 4 stars. Thought of giving this book like 4.5, 4.75 stars, but no, this deserves 5 stars. It is a beautiful love story of this woman who starts living in an apartment that her aunt owned, and that apartment time travels 7 years at a time. So she finds a man just roaming about in her house, and she's like, who are you? Why are we in the same house? Look at all of the annotations. I swear to God, so many beautiful quotes have not existed in one book. And there's a personal journey of the main character, and the guy calls the girl Lemon, and you'll only know what that means when you read the book. And there are so many times where you read a book and oh, it was amazing in the moment, but as soon as you get out of it, you don't really remember what happened. I think that sort of happened with this series for me because there was just so much going on, and that happens with so many romances. With this book, I remember so many scenes and I remember so many quotations because it was unique and it was beautiful and it just imprinted on my brain. It was a magical experience. So if you want a romance, it does have time travel, but you don't have to get into the time travel part of it, like why are we time traveling and shit like that. You just want to have fun with it and you want to have the most beautiful love story ever. This is your book. Highly recommended, even if you're a teenager, because there's no spice in it, and great for beginners. Talking about teenagers being able to read books, the next book is a YA romance. It's by one of my favorite authors from last year, but I was a little disappointed this year from this book, and I am so sad because even though the book was not that bad, I just am finding it worse because I just expected so much. So it's kind of my fault. The book I'm talking about is The Getaway List by Emma Lord. I've boasted about Begin Again and again, the philosophy of it, the characters in it, everybody coming together, the college romance, the mentions of coffee, everything in that book is glorious and I loved it so much. So I was so excited to read another book by the same author, and I was disappointed. This is the story of Riley, who has not gotten into any college after her school, and her best friend Tom had a getaway list. They have been separated since 3 to 4 years because Tom had to shift because of his mother's job, and they have not seen each other since a long time, and she just decides to drop in Tom's house to get done with the getaway list. You also see what happens when Riley, who honestly is a troublemaker, is not able to understand what she genuinely wants from her life, because for the longest time her mom has kept her so busy with so much going on in her life so that Riley doesn't create problems, and that has led Riley to not have the time to really understand who she is as a person. So she is also finding herself through this getaway list. It all sounds so amazing, and yes, the story is beautiful, but one, way too cheesy for me. Two, the book is trying a little too hard to be inspiring. You don't have to try that hard. Again and again with these philosophical statements which make no sense to the situation that is going on. You know, like one of those friends, and I am one of those friends, who see the tiniest thing happening in the world and they're like, oh my god, find so much meaning in it. Just did not enjoy it in this book. The number of repetition in this book of how she was not allowed to do things as a kid and now she's going to change. Fine, change. Show me how you're changing. Stop talking about it over and over again. So yeah, I got a little annoyed. Also, I loved the side characters in the first book that I read, Begin Again. I did not like the side characters in this book. They were not adding to the story, but they had so much story. The point is they're supposed to add to the story. If you have so much story, I just did not enjoy this book a lot. I have given it around 2.5 to 2.75 stars because I do think there's a lot of potential in here. Now let's talk about some anticipated releases of the year that I have read in the past few months, starting with the reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. I read it! I'm so excited that I read it. This is the story of Belle, who has lost her mother when she was 2 years old, and now there is a documentary being made on what exactly happened to Rachel Price, who is the mother, only to see that Rachel Price comes back. She reappears. I am very happy to announce that I was not disappointed by Holly Jackson at all with this one, because if you're a regular viewer of the channel and if you have subscribed since like last year, you know I love Good Girls Guide to Murder series, but I have not really enjoyed 5 Survive, and all of the things that I did not enjoy about 5 Survive has actually become better in this book. Like, this is what I wanted. The highlight about Holly Jackson thrillers is that the characters are not just a pawn to the thriller or the mystery of the book. They have a life of their own. They have arcs of their own, and seeing the journey of them growing along with finding out what exactly happening, along with the darkness, along with the thrill and the mystery, is all so good together, and Holly Jackson does that so well. That is exactly what happened in this book. The characters are built so beautifully. I love them from the beginning till the end. The pacing is beautiful from the beginning till the last 20 to 30 pages. The number of characters amazing. All of them were so important to the story. In all, what a great time. I loved it so much, and I loved the ending so much. It was definitely a gut punch, and I did not see that coming at all. I have given it 4.5 to 4.75 stars. It's not a 5-star because of the little lull in the middle, and I think that in the ending I would like it if it unraveled in a different way. I can't speak more about it because I don't want to give away any spoilers, but just that the ending was little too jam-packed, and I wish it unraveled a little more slowly. You know what I'm talking about if you have read the book. So I've given it 4.5 to 4.75 stars. The pacing just fell off towards the end. That's the only reason, but apart from that, I highly recommend it. Great for teenagers, great for beginners, amazing, highly recommended book. How many times am I gonna say that? Read it. Moving on to another anticipated release, which is also a romance. We have Funny Story by Emily Henry. I got the ARC of the book and I read it the day I got it. Couldn't stop myself. Finished it. I think in 24 hours. This is the story of two people whose current partners left them, so now they're their exes, and now their exes are together. These people are alone and she has no place to stay, which is where Miles, the guy, is trying to help her, and he's like, hey, you can stay with me for some time till you get back up on your feet. It's a funny story. I've talked about this book a lot. It's already in a reading vlog, so you can go and check that out. I'll link it in the description. I really liked this book. It was fun. It is definitely the spiciest book that Emily Henry has written, so remember that. It's great for beginners and it's a beautiful romance, and the number of quotable lines was amazing. But I thought that the conflict towards the end was completely unnecessary or not built up properly and solved way too easily. So for those 20 pages where they are in a conflict, I'm like, oh my god, stop. But before that, beautiful. After that, beautiful. It is also not very intense. If you have read Happy Place and you're like, oh my god, is it going to tear my heart out? No, it's not going to. It's chill, it's fun, it's a nice summery read, and I gave it 4.25 stars. Next is my 6-star read, and I am shocked because this book has been sitting in my shelf since years. I think like 2 years, 3 years at this point, and I cannot believe I did not pick it up earlier and read it. It's a young adult book, so you can definitely read it if you're a teenager, but do not read it if you're in a bad place. Do not read it if you can get triggered, and do read the trigger warning properly. If you do read this book, it's one of the best books that revolves around the topic of mental health. And the book I'm talking about is How It Feels to Float by Helena Fox. This is the story of a girl who has just lost her father, but she can see her father, and she's just trying to live her normal teenage life, but nothing about her life is normal in here. We see her struggle from page 1, but at least her life is going on, and then something happens because of which it all just comes crashing down. She doesn't even have her dad, and then she has nothing. Look at all of those annotations because it's written in the most poetic style. The quotes hit hard. The number of times I have teared up is not normal, but more than that, so many parts of it were so relatable for me. So much of it was not relatable, but I just know that it can get like that in real life for people. I just know it. This book is a piece of art. It's not something you read to understand. It's something you read to feel. And if you want to read a book about a character who does not want to live, but she keeps on living, and what happens when she does that, this is your book. It's also similar to Turtles All the Way Down. So if you like Turtles All the Way Down, you're just gonna insanely love this book like crazy. What it's like to be an overthinker and what it's like to live with multiple mental illnesses. I hate it that whenever I have a 6-star read, I have no words to express why and how much I loved the book. But all I'm saying is that this book is a part of me. Oh yeah, if you like Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine, then also you will love this book. It's not as detail oriented, but imagine an Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine, mixed with totals all the way down because it's YA, mixed with a little bit like Madeline Miller writing, which is so lyrical and poetic that you lose yourself in the words. A piece of art, highly recommended. Do read the trigger warnings though. Just if you read it without reading the trigger warnings, just don't talk to me. Moving on to something inspiring and light, something that took me back to my own teenage, and I'm not going to talk much about it because I've recommended this book so much already. It was the first reread of the year for me, and the book is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This is the book that made me start this channel. This is the book that made me go on the journey that I am on right now. This is the book that has made me courageous enough to follow my dreams. It's what gives me strength when I am failing, when I am filled with self-doubt. A very spiritual fantasy type setting. It's not very realistic, and it's not meant for you if you are not a dreamer. But if you're a daydreamer, even if you're a teenager, even if you're a beginner, if you think things that people don't understand do exist somewhere inside you, then you will love this book so much. Next up, we have a sci-fi thriller, and the book is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This is a story of a man who wakes up in a different reality than his own, and he loves his own reality because he is with his family. What happens when you have multiple choices in front of you? What happens when you make a different choice? Because there are so many choices we make on a day-to-day basis that change our life. Every single day, one different choice and your life could look completely different. It's sort of like The Midnight Library, but make it sci-fi and make it a thriller. It was super interesting. I loved that I did understand the sci-fi parts of it, the sci-fi element. I think you can start with this book. Teenagers can also read it, and I gave it 4 stars. It was written in 2016, and I think that if I read it in 2016, it would have hit me harder and I would have appreciated the book more. The whole sci-fi multiverse part of it, I've just seen so much more that has already happened, that this one felt a little faded in front of it. I think that's a personal opinion. Next, we have The Gentleman from Peru by Andre Aciman, who is the story of Call Me By Your Name, and I love that book so much except for the peach scene, so I was so excited to read this one. And this book, I am actually still thinking about it if it is 4.5 or 5. It's a story of a group of people that have gone to an island on a vacation, and they see this gentleman who is from Peru all the time, but he's very secluded and he never talks and he's just so introverted and things like that. And one day they call him over to their table and they start talking, and then they find things about the gentleman which they cannot believe. I'll tell you one thing, that description and the name of this book is so deceiving. The book is about something completely different, and I'll give you a hint, it's about love. And I read the Goodreads description of it, the Amazon description of it. Guys, if you actually want to enjoy this book, do not read those descriptions. Seriously, everything is given away in those descriptions. Like, why are you even reading the book if you've read the description? Because you already read the book when you're reading the description. I love Andre Aciman's writing. It is beautiful, it captures you, it is mesmerizing. I'm able to see it so properly, and it is so atmospheric. The ambience this book was able to create was beautiful, and apart from that, the love part, it is not as magical as Call Me By Your Name for sure, but even then, it's magical enough. I think the uniqueness of Andre Aciman is that he writes things very raw. They're so vulnerable and they're so intimate and they're so naked. There's no spice in this book. I'm just saying that even if he's writing about something really wise, he writes it in a very naked form, and I don't know any other way to describe it. And you can definitely read it even if you're a teenager. The next few books I'm gonna rush by because there is a vlog coming for them, so check that vlog out whenever it comes out. First up, we have The Fury by Alex Michaelides, who is the author of The Silent Patient, not the patient of the silent author. And I love The Silent Patient, so this was a very anticipated release for me. I enjoyed this book so much. It's a story of multiple people coming to an island and something happens over there, like a murder takes place. That's all I'm going to tell you. This writing style was out of the world. It is inspired by Agatha Christie, and I could see the modern day Agatha Christie-ness in it, and I loved it. Just that it gets a little bit crazy towards the end. Some of the plot twists were predictable, but so many of them were not. I just think it was one plot twist way too much. It should have ended a little earlier. It's not like The Silent Patient at all for me. Silent Patient is godly. This just wasn't, but I do recommend it. Next was a DNF for me. It is Anna O, which is the story of Anna who has slept since her best friends got killed, and now this doctor has decided that his life will change, his career will change if Anna wakes up, and he tries to wake her up. Very silent patient vibe. That's why I was just thinking that this is gonna be the best book I ever read, but it just wasn't. Oh my god, it wasn't. On the other hand, if you are into scientific stuff, not sci-fi, if you're into science and you love scientific details and you want that mixed with a thriller, I think you'll really enjoy this book. Next is My Husband by Maud Ventura. Cheeky little thing this book is. I just want to say that I highly recommend it. It's a story of this woman who is just constantly talking about her husband. It's not very dark and it's not twisted. It's just funny. I do highly very highly recommend it, but remember that it's very detail oriented and it can be really slow. In the end, we have The Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden, which is the second book. It is a sequel of The Housemaid. At this point, I can't speak. I'm losing my senses. The maid basically gets into more mess, and it was a very fun read, but I liked the first book way more than the second book. I was hoping that this book would dive more into the personality of Millie, but it did not, and I was a little disappointed because of that. But then I decided to give the book the space to be itself, and when I did that, it was really fun. I will never not read a Frida McFadden book because they're all just so bingeable and so interesting. It's almost like having junk food a little bit because it's just so good, even if the writing isn't the best, honestly. And with that, we come towards the end of the video. Those were all of the books that I have recently read. I hope you got at least one recommendation out of it. I think this video is going to be really long, but I'll put this timestamps for you. And if you like the video, please do share, like, subscribe. It really helps me out. I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye.